Happy Friday. Today we get to start in earnest on Pillar 4, social and personality. And let me turn my Aloha music on. Okay. One announcement. So, next Tuesday at 11:30 in the Tony White Theater, which is the big room behind Terra Grounds in the Campus Union, kind of next to the game room, in between that and Zach's, right? The psychology department is hosting a speaker. And so Dr. Weissler is a specialist in the psychology of language, and psycholinguistics is the field. And she particularly is interested in language discrimination, which is very fitting since we're going to start talking about how we form impressions of others and the role of stereotypes in that, starting today, actually. So, in addition to being able to hear a top-notch scholar come talk about her research that's related to our class, we're also providing a nice free lunch. And so you have that incentive of a nice lunch to go attend. So I really would love to see you all there. I'd really encourage you to put that on your calendars. It's something we try and do once a semester as a psychology department, is invite a well-known speaker to come to campus to interact with our students. So, I'll remind you on Monday, but if you want to put it on your calendar, next Tuesday at 11:30, free lunch. You don't have to do anything but come eat lunch and listen, right? And so, anyway, highly recommend coming to hear her. All right. Questions about that? We're good? Good. All right, so get out your classroom assignment from last time, right? And we were finishing up. I want to finish up this discussion because I thought we were having a good discussion about this, but we didn't get to my conclusion points, which is where I really wanted to go with this, right? All right, so refresh my memory. What was the influence of technology on social relationships? Someone tell me what they wrote down about that. This is why you wrote it down, so you can just look at it and say what you wrote down. Carol.
We choose technology over personal relationships a lot, and that we are always on our phones.
Okay.
Dinner and everything.
Yeah, so the ability to connect with people online through social media and through text and through our phones is sort of becoming more common than interacting face-to-face, right? What about the improving communication with others? Who can tell me about that? What's that about? Yes, Cooper.
Yeah, we were always antisocial. We were kind of born actually social, but throughout the years, technology has kept us from actually watching our environment and seeing how others socialize.
Okay, right. And what else was in that video? You're right. That was the premise of it. Yes.
Wasn't it like a challenge, like one social interaction a day or something like that, or one stranger interaction?
100 interactions in 30 days.
Oh,
Yeah. And what was that point of that?
It's, I guess improve your, I don't know the word, improve your social behavior.
Yeah, improve your social behaviors. You want to have something to add to that? What about the last question? I think that's kind of where we left off. Do you think that either of these clips could influence your behavior or what? I mean, that's a personal question.
I said interacting with people face to face, it could improve my social skills and make me more confident and just more skill in general, public speaking and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, the second one more so than the first one. But for me, not really, because that's something I've just heard a lot already. Like people have put down their phones, like you can do other stuff. So I'm just kind of like already like, yeah, I get it.
Right, that was kind of the first talk, right?
Yeah.
Okay. What did you think about, let me go back to, I want to see if I can play a little clip on this. What did you think about this part of it?
This language. Now you might be wondering, improvement bill. Okay, that makes sense and all, but how do I get more practice? Well, when I was about 18 years old, I decided to, it's sort of like this, because I enjoy helping you out. All you gotta do is like, oh, would it be helpful to have, and it wouldn't really even be a course. I literally just explain to you all you have to do. But then they'd often say something like, oh, would it be helpful to have an accountability group, and also if you can motivate us every day of the challenge. So if that's something you're interested in, I guess, why not? I'll make the program, because I do enjoy helping you out. All you gotta do is sign up for my mailing list using the link in the description box below, and I'll let you know the next time we run this experimental program. Back to the topic at hand.
So did that part strike a chord with anybody or make you feel any certain way? No? You guys are just so used to watching YouTube videos that this is just like part and parcel of it? I mean, when I was watching that, that made me feel like, I was watching this and like, oh, this guy's talking about how our brain's not getting enough practice and all we need to do is give it opportunities to learn and blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden I felt like I was being sold something, right? Like, he's like, oh, I just told you how it all works, but I like you guys, so sure, I'll do a course if you want to sign up, click the link below and, blah, 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 I'm doing you a favor, sort of thing. I don't know, that made me feel like emotionally a little bit like icky. I don't know. Not you guys? You guys are like, oh, that's part of every YouTube video. Talk to me. Anyone feel the same way? Anyone feel different? Hannah?
I feel the same way. Whenever I first watched it, I was
Yeah.
like, I didn't feel the same. It was just, it didn't make me feel as like natural. It kind of felt like superficial after that a little bit.
Okay. How do you judge like the validity of this stuff? Do you think that this is I mean, you guys seem to think that talking to 100 people, strangers in 30 days would be a good way to reprogram your brain to become more socially interactive, right? How do you judge the validity of that? You're just like, oh, sounds like a good idea. Do you think this is based in science? I mean, it sounds like it, right? He's talking about the brain and how the brain works. Yeah.
I feel like it's based off of a feeling, like for him, like, I don't know, if I went and talked to 100 strangers in 30 days, like, what if I was like, all right, didn't accomplish much, but now I did it. So I feel like he maybe was just really socially awkward before trying,
Yeah.
and then like that helped him out.
Yeah. Or maybe he really wasn't socially awkward, but he really wants to study something. Right? Do you think his program's free if you sign up for his program? And did you hear what he said about it at the end? What was the last thing that he said on that?
It was experimental.
Yeah, he said, I'll let you know the next time we run this experiment. And he like emphasized experiment, like this is science, like this is experiment. I'm a scientist, I know what I'm talking about, right? So how would you, if you're watching self-help videos on YouTube, like how do you judge the validity of this stuff? Like which of those two do you think's valid? Do you think both of them are valid, the first video and the second video? Yes.
I think they're valid in different ways. The first one is definitely more grounded in science. I personally just didn't think it was targeted at it was targeted at an overgeneralization.
Okay.
The second one is more grounded in experience, but disguised as science.
Yeah. So, hopefully, one of the things you're taking away from this class is being able to identify like when claims are based in science and when claims are based in pseudoscience. You remember when we talked at the very start of this class, that was like an important thing. We wanted you guys to be able to identify that kind of stuff, right? So, if you were really interested in this improving your communication with others, right, you're just gonna like follow the Pied Piper like a blind sheep and be like, yeah, sign me up for your 100-day challenge? Or how would you maybe look and see like whether or not that was a good thing to do? What would you do? How could you tell if that's pseudoscience or science? Yeah,
You could just try it yourself without paying. You can just go talk to a bunch of people and see if it was good.
sure. You can waste 30 days doing that if it's just some guy telling you to do
I'm not
this.
saying that would do it for 30 days.
But how would you evaluate that video of whether or not you should believe what this person's saying? Yes.
Personally, I would go look through the comments and look at like not testimonials, but like if someone's already done it before. As a broke college student, I'm not spending any money on anything that will waste my money for time. So I'm gonna look at like someone before me.
Okay. So you can look at the comments. Of course, the comments are written by people like you, right? So how else could you vet this? Do you ever think about vetting the things that you watch that you're like, oh, that sounds good. Maybe I ought to look into that. I'm just going to buy this skin creams that says it'll make my skin look better. I'm not going to look into the research of that.
You could look at the other stuff that he's like either selling or promoting or just
Or
doing.
even maybe who is this person,
Yeah.
right? Maybe that's a good place to start. So his channel's called Improvement Pill, right? That's his YouTube channel, right? So if I type in who is Improvement Pill, right? Okay. So if I go, let's look here, right? Right. So this guy is a door-to-door salesman. He's a door-to-door salesman, right? He sells stuff to people for a living. And now what he sells people are YouTube clips. And he's made millions of dollars on YouTube by posting content like this. And he goes by the name Improvement. He has no education, definitely no education in psychology or in science-based. None of it's based on research, right? You know, he was working as a karaoke DJ, right? And figured out that after he made a successful sale on Amazon that, hey, I could sell things online, right? And he intended to do a face reveal, but was worried that he'd be mobbed by people because he's so famous on YouTube, right? So does that change your perspective on that video, knowing who this person is that's posting this content, or are you still like, nah, that sounds cool? Yeah, PJ.
You know, I already take it with a grain of salt. Like some of the most social people I know are like bartenders. So I mean, you kind of like I understand he's trying to sell you something, you don't even mind.
But he professed to not be social. He's like, I was awkward growing up, and then I did this amazing thing, and now I'm wildly, like, did he really do that? Do you think at 18 this thing really changed his life and he became a karaoke DJ? Or do you think he's like, how can I get money from people? People are socially awkward now. Why are they socially awkward? Oh, it's probably because they're on their cell phones. I mean, he just thought all that stuff up, right? There's no data to back it up, right? What about the Allison Graham that was in the TED Talk?
She was actually a doctor,
She was?
right? She's not.
Why would you think that then?
I couldn't remember.
Skiing.
Thank you. Because she's on a TED Talk, right? Because she's on a TED Talk.
Yeah, Caroline. Yeah. She get bonus points.
Right. So Allison Lee Graham, when that was recorded in 2014, right, was a social media historian.
It's not a real thing.
I've never heard of that. I've never heard that you get a degree in social media history. So she's a social media historian, right? And in 2020, 6 years after she gave that talk as an authoritative figure, right, she earned a master's in education with a focus on curriculum education technology, and she's currently is a student at Johns Hopkins, probably getting her PhD, studying immersive storytelling and emerging realities, right? So again, one of my points in showing you this is twofold. One, there's validity in the fact that technology is changing how we interact with others. It's impacting social psychology for sure, right? And it is doing things like making it more difficult for people that are used to just being on a little square device to interact with people face to face. And part of that is practice. Part of that is learning social cues. I mean, that's based, his cell is based in some reality of what's going on in science-based stuff, right? But my other point in showing you this is we have to be really careful of the types of social media and the types of things that we ingest and believe online. And you really, if it's something that you're like, I mean, if you're just watching stuff for fun, who cares if it's real or not? But if you're like, hey, that sounds interesting, I'm going to do something to change my behavior or change my life based on this thing, maybe you ought to vet. Like, who are those people? And just because they're on a TED Talk, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're qualified to be using that just because they're spewing someone else's statistics. I mean, she did have statistics, and you could probably go look this up, and they're probably real. I'm not trying to put her down too much, but we do, again, we're going to get into impression formation. The fact that someone's on a TED Talk gives them some authoritative role. So much Hannah's like, she was a doctor, right? Like, never said that, but the way she presented herself, the types of statistics she quoted, and the fact that she was in the TED Talk setting, right? Which, by the way, that's a TED Talk at like San Antonio. Nothing against like these satellite TED Talks, but it's not like the TED Talk, like the real TED Talk. We had a TED Talk here at Wofford several years ago, and students gave TED Talks as like TED Talk X Wofford. Great, it was a great opportunity for their students. Maybe their videos are out on the interweb and people are like taking them as authoritative people. I don't know. But my point is we have to be, you need to be good consumers of information and vetting, whether it's science or pseudoscience, because that kind of stuff, as we're going to see today, can really influence our future behavior, really influence our future behavior. Society can influence our future behavior, right? Cool, we good on that? I probably spent too much time on that. We're going to get away now. I find this stuff super cool, so. All right, so just an overview of chapter 12, right? My name is Dr. Pittman, not Dr. Love, and so we're probably not going to cover the section on attraction and liking. I'm not going to teach you how to fall in love and how to build relationships, okay? So we're probably going to skip over that section, but it's worthwhile, it's a good read, right? But it's probably not something that we're going to spend a lot of time on. We're going to focus more on sort of the classical view of social psychology. And we're also probably not going to talk about section 12.9, but these other sections are what we're going to talk about. And we're going to talk about hopefully these two today. All right, a real quick thing. How many of you take a sociology course? A sociology course? Only a couple of you, 3 of you? Okay. What's the difference between social psychology and sociology? In fact, there used to be, I just looked at the course catalog and they've taken it off the books, it's no longer a course, but sociology used to offer a course called social psychology. And students got confused all the time because we offer a course called social psychology. And it was the same title, 2 different courses in 2 different departments, right? So what do you think the difference is between social psychology and sociology? My peeps in sociology, what do you know about that field? They're doing a good job over there. I'm not done shaking.
I mean, I can only assume that social psychology is like related to like the brain, I guess, and sociology is more like society as like a whole.
I love that you think that psychology is all about the brain, because like, clearly I'm giving you my bias, but psychology is way more than just the brain. But I love that you think that.
Well, my sociology was education. So.
Mine's gender.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I feel like social psychology is like the ways in which people interact and like study like why they're acting the way they are. So it's more about like the why, and sociology is like how.
Okay.
I thought it was pretty good.
Any other thoughts? So in general, if I was to say, what is psychology besides understand how the brain is the thing that's responsible for everything. But if I was saying, if you were to define, like, what was psychology? What was the first definition we talked about way back when? Yes?
The study of human behavior.
The study of human behavior, right? Study of human behavior. So we're talking about social psychology. What do you think that is? How society influences a person's behavior, right? So social psych, we have different subject matter, right? Social psychology is how individual people's thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, right? Not just behaviors, but how they think and feel, right? Is influenced by other people, or by others. And that can be people, it can be situations, it can be things, environmental things like technology, or even cars. Like, how is your behavior different in a Tesla that can drive itself versus a stick shift that you're driving, right? We have different behaviors now in cars based on the environment that we're in. So all those things are social psychology, but it's all about what the individual is doing, right? In sociology, they're interested in the social structure. They're interested in the bigger picture. They're interested in culture, cultural influences, societal influences. And they may be interested in how those influences act on people and what those people do and think and feel, but it's about the society side, not about what the individuals do. And that's what's different, right? And often they're looking more at bigger picture, like, how did that develop? How did that influence of society develop? What is the function of it? What are social problems that exist, bigger problems, and how do we treat them? The other way these two fields are different is in their typical modes of research. So in social psychology, we're typically using experiments, either observational or empirical, in order to arrive at our question, just like we've talked about from research methods all the way through, right? Whereas in sociology, they tend to be interested in things like field studies, or they're much more interested in the naturalistic settings. It's rare for them to manipulate things in an experimental form, right? Or ask hypotheses-based sorts of questions. It's rare, right? Okay, good on that? Awesome. Okay, so one of the first things we're going to talk about is how we form impressions of others. How we form impressions of others. And then, once we have an impression or idea of someone else, what are our attitudes and what are our behaviors and relationships with those other people? And what influences that? What influences that? How do we interpret other people's behavior? All of these are questions that we're going to talk about in this section, right? Social cognition. What's cognition? Pillar 2, sorry. If I were to ask you what's cognition, what would you say? She just had an exam last class on this. Memory and decision making, right? Thinking processes, ways of knowing. So social cognition are decisions and ways of knowing based on how we explain and predict our own behavior and others' behavior, right? So here's the cognition part. How do we process, remember, and make decisions, use information? But it's based on influences on our behavior or judging other people's behavior. That's the social part of it. All right. So we're gonna do a little experiment. I sent you, if you pull up your email, you can put it up on your phone or your computer, doesn't matter. There's a Google link to a Google form. Pull that up right now. So we're gonna do a little exercise. should look like this. Nope, that's the wrong one. It won't look like that. It should look like this, right? Pull it up. Let me know once you have it up. Once you have it up, put your hand up so I know you got it up. I'm not waiting on anybody. Waiting. Miss everybody.
Sorry, my Wi-Fi's terrible.
It's no problem. Just pull it up on your email. I want to make sure everybody has the form up before we start, because I'm going to show you some qualities about people. So I'm going to show you some qualities about people, and then I want you to answer 3 questions. Overall, and we want to do this quick, right? We're running out of time. Overall impression, just rate them. Very favorable to unfavorable. 0 through 7, it's anonymous, right? Just put that in. Personal, likable, 1 through 7. And then down here, there are some words. Just click yes or no. Does that describe, do you think that trait describes this person? Okay? So we're going to go quick. Everybody ready? Okay. So, your friends agree that person 1, this is the first one, we're going to do 4 of them. Person 1 is productive, practical, warm, determined, cautious, skillful. Answer those 3 questions. When you're done, look up at me. When everybody's looking at me, we're going to go to the next one. I'll stand over here. Quick, everybody's done? Good? All right, moving on to the second one. Person 2 is unfair, stubborn, critical, fun-loving, irritating, forgiving, informed, approving. Go to the next screen, rate person 2. Again, look over here when you're done. Put your phone down, put your hands up. All right, everybody good? We're waiting on anyone want me to wait? Good, we're good, we're good. Person number 3. Cautious, determined, cold, smart, skillful, productive, practical. Rate person number 3 for me. All right, good. Everybody ready for the last person? Here we go. Person number 4. Fair, compromising, uncritical, ill-natured, agreeable, spiteful, clueless, judgmental. You know when you're done. All right, everybody good? Everybody good? Okay, everybody submitted it? Okay. All right, so this exercise, obviously an impression formation. You have some descriptors. I'm asking you, is this person likable? What are traits that they have, right? And the question I want to know is, could a single word change your overall impression? And could the order of positive and negative descriptors change your overall impression? So, for instance, let me just pull them all up here. Number 1 and number 3 had exactly the same words, except one had warm and one had cold. So we're going to look at your responses. It's a live experiment. We've never done this before. I know you guys, we have good data. I don't know. We'll see. But what do you think? How many people think a single word could change your impression, or the fact that there's 5 other words that are identical, your impression won't be affected? Okay, people think that might affect it. In 2 and 4, right? The first words are negative, and the first words are positive. Do you think the order of the words matters? Maybe? All right, let's see. I'm interested because I don't know. We could totally fall flat on our face with this, right? All right, so person one, overall impression is positive, likable. Most people said that. Okay, let's look at person three. I don't know what you think about that. Person three, look at the shift. Okay, this is person three. The only difference was cold versus warm. When the word cold was in there, the shift in overall impression is more negative, likable, more negative, compared to person one. Right? Look how positive your things were. Trait-wise, let's see. A lot more no's, right? And a lot more yeses for person one. One word difference. One word difference. All right, let's look at person two. More kind of negative, right? On the negative side of things. A lot more no's. Let's look at person four. I have no idea what this is going to be. Person four was also negative. A lot more no's for person one, right? So what do you think, for person four? So let's go back to our slide. So what do you think happened there? If you were a researcher and this was your study, right? What do you think? This came out, was our hypothesis correct on this? We're saying one word could shift your impression? Seems like in our very limited but educated sample size, right? What about this here? Both of these were about the same, although this one had more no's on the traits than this one. But in likability and what was the other one? I don't remember. Overall impression and likability, right? Both of these were negative, more negative, right? But this one had more no's on traits. What do you think's happening there?
Which one had more no's?
Huh?
Which one had more no's? Which one?
This one had more no's on traits than this one. They were both about the same negative likability, each of them.
I know for me it wasn't necessarily about the order of the words, but it was about like the extremes. Like I took fun loving into account for two, and ill natured immediately like turned me off to number four.
Yeah. So how I made these, I just took the antonym. So the antonym of unfair is fair. The antonym of stubborn is comprising. Critical is uncritical. Fun-loving is ill-natured. Right? So these are just opposites, right, of each of those. Any other hypotheses on like why you think that came out that way? If I were to guess, what is something we talked about last time in terms of learning and cognition? Those,
That's what I was thinking.
yeah, so tell us about that, Carrington.
You remember the first and the last things, and then also like you just kind of forget what's in the middle, and compared to 2 and 4. Because 2 you had negative things at the beginning, and 4 you had a lot of negative things at the end. So that was the first thing you remember when you're making your decision.
Yeah. So maybe when we're forming impressions of other people, maybe negative things carry more value than positive things. We're like, do I want to be friends with this person? Like, negative things mean I really don't. Positive things mean maybe I do. But I definitely don't if you have negative associations. And when things come first to us, so maybe next year when I do this, I'll put some things in the middle. We'll have one with neutrals on either side and put it in the middle and see. Of course, I won't do it in a different color because I don't want the salience, right? I'm just kidding. All this stuff comes together in here. All right. So, what are the factors that influence our impressions of other people? What are some things you think influence when you meet someone for the very first time? You've never met them before. You walk up to a friend of yours in Burwell and they say, "Hey, I'd like you to meet Joe." You've never met Joe before. How do you form impressions about Joe? Yes, PJ.
Might be controversial, but hygiene.
Hygiene, okay. Appearance, I think those two go together.
Body language.
Body language. Any other things you think?
If they're like outgoing or like timid.
Okay, their personality. Personality. Let's talk about personality. What else? Anything? All right. So, how many think that it's good to judge a book by its cover? You haven't ever heard that before, right? Like how some physical appearance. It turns out. So first of all, the context can matter, right? So if your friend introduces you to Joe in Burwell, right, and your friend introduces you to Joe Friday night at a social event, right, the context of that is probably going to influence your impression of them, right? The context is going to influence that. But the number one thing that you all said is physical appearance. Well, that kind of stinks because you're kind of like, you got what you got, right? So, but this is a human trait. I mean, this is an innate thing that time after time we have confirmed with research, right? That physical appearance matters. And this is an example of what we call bottom-up processing. So what do I mean by bottom-up processing? Bottom-up processing is when our brain processes information that's coming in from our senses, right? It's visually what we're seeing, it's coming in, it's a little bit less bias. It's biased in the fact that of my opinion of what is attractive or unattractive, right? But the actual information coming in is what I see, right? And then we have stereotypes and subjectivity. And this is top-down processing, meaning my past experience influences how I interpret that bottom-up coming in, right? So what are some common stereotypes that people have? Not you, but people. I'm sure nobody in here has stereotypes. You all have stereotypes. It's fine. We're going to talk about that.
If you're in like Greek life or something, you're partying.
Okay, so your group affiliation. If you're a student athlete, if you're in Greek life, if you're part of the chess club, I don't know what, right? So groups, sure. What else influences your perceptions? Yeah.
Like what you're wearing, like if someone's wearing like a bunch of designer and nice stuff, you might be like, oh, they're stuck up, bitch.
Sure, okay. So physical appearance, right, can invoke stereotypes. Right? And we can have things like nationality. Do they appear to be from the US or do they appear to be international? Ethnicity. Things that we get uncomfortable talking about, right? But all of these things are top-down influences that can subconsciously influence our perceptions of people, right? All right, so we're going to walk through each of those. So let's start with physical appearance, the bottom-up stuff, right? There's this assumption of what is beautiful is good. At the same time, since you were very young, your parents and other people have probably tried to instill in you, don't judge a book by its cover. Don't do this. How many people were taught that growing up, right? I mean, I don't want to call you out, I wasn't taught that. But seriously, that's like a thing that society does. Yet, why do we still, then if you were trained to not do this, then why do we do it? All your life you were told not to do this. Right? So, it turns out, and we'll talk about sort of the evolutionary pressure of this, right? But for thousands and thousands of years, right, two main things for our survival, right, were reproduction and being in a group that was going to help protect you from other groups that wanted to kill you, right? I mean, until modern times, right, when we lived in tribes for thousands of years, right, these are the things that allow people to succeed and live, right? Yes?
I feel like also just
as like a little girl growing up, I watched like, you know, like the princess movies and stuff. And it's
Sure.
like, they made like the.
Sure, so there are parts of our culture, that reinforce this, for sure. And the media and movies and TV, I mean, a lot of attractive people on there, right? So, okay. Faces are particularly important, but also, as you guys mentioned, how people dress, their mannerisms, their body language, all of those things wrap into this physical appearance thing, right? And unfortunately, research shows, right, that if we ask people to rate people, we show them pictures of people and we say, circle the traits that belong with those people. Physically attractive people are rated more sociable, friendly, poised, warm, and well-adjusted, even rated as having less mental health issues than less physically attractive people. Right? However, if we then look at if we assess those people that are in the photos, there's no evidence that the physically attractive people are more emotionally stable, or are more friendly, or sociable, or the less attractive. So there's no data, there's no real basis for this, right? Yet time and time again, studies find this. And in fact, so why does this matter? Doesn't matter.
You could argue this has an effect in like a police lineup. Someone that you think is more physically attractive, you're going to be like, nah, that's not the guy.
Mm-hmm. So relating it back to false memories and eyewitness testimony, right? Wow.
Even in like a job interview, if you like come in like looking pretty disheveled, they'll be like, oh, they're not like organized and whatever. Like, they make assumptions based off of that.
Sure. Turns out, attractive people tend to get interviewed. Thank you, Caroline. I told her to say that before class. Attractive people are more likely to get interviewed and hired and earn higher salaries. That doesn't seem fair. Does that seem fair? There's a correlation of about 0.24 in research studies looking at this. Now, is that a strong correlation? No, but it's a correlation. It's a weak correlation. But overall, they have a leg up in their careers, if you will, right? Now, the good news, you want some good news? All the attractive people like that, this sounds good. The good news is that the correlation between intelligence and your salary is 0.5. What does that mean? Yes?
The more intelligent you are, the higher the salary.
Yeah, the more intelligent you are, the higher salary. Does that seem fair? Fairer? Right? So, and that correlation, how does that compare to the attractiveness? It's twice as strong, right? So, while attractiveness may be a stereotype, it may be something that influences people's impressions of people, there are other things that thankfully are more important, right, that outweigh that, like intelligence. All right. So now, stereotypes and subjectivity and top-down influences. Stereotypes are beliefs that people have certain characteristics because of their membership in a group. So by a show of hands, we'll do this so I can just see it and you all can. So raise your left hand when I tell you. Raise your left hand if you think stereotypes are bad. Raise your right hand if you think stereotypes are good. Okay? Go. Left hand, stereotypes are bad. Right hand, stereotypes are good. Left hand, stereotypes are good. Got two hands up. People are putting both. You guys are like, time to pivot. We're smarter than that. All right. What are common stereotypes? We already mentioned some. Gender, We didn't mention gender. Age. We already talked about ageism, right? Remember that laugh? We did. Right? Ethnicity, occupation, what we perceive that people do for a living. All of those things generate impressions about someone. They generate impressions about someone, right? It's a type of heuristic. What does that mean? It's a shortcut. Our brain loves heuristics, right? Didn't we just spend a whole pillar talking about heuristics, a lot about heuristics? Right? And heuristics are what? Good or bad? Both. They're complicated. They're good when they turn out to be correct, not so good when they turn out to not match up right. Right? So, another term that we talked about last time, what is confirmational bias? Surely that's a multiple choice question. Okay? Finding information that supports your hypothesis, right? So how can confirmational bias be related to stereotypes? Do you think it is or is it not?
I mean, I guess if like people said, oh, girls are weaker than boys, whatever. If like they did a competition, who could lift the most weights, or whatever, you could figure that out. Right?
You could, yes, if you were objective about it, but what would confirmational bias say?
You would see a man lifting every little woman.
Yeah, so you got some guys that are strong and can lift a lot of weights, and you have some guys that aren't strong and can't lift a lot of weight, and you have some women that are strong and can lift some weights, and women that don't. And someone with confirmational bias would focus on, look at all the women that couldn't lift the weight, and look at all the men that could. Even though maybe the data doesn't support that. If you were to look objectively at the data, maybe there's equal numbers of people, right? So this applies to stereotypes. We call this illusory correlation, okay? And this is when you overestimate the number of confirmations to support your own beliefs, your own stereotypes. So this is a bias that we have that's built into our brain that sort of artificially supports that heuristic. Right? So there may be only, there may be 2 guys lifting the heavy weights and 2 girls lifting the heavy weights, but you focus on the fact that there's 8 girls that are not lifting heavy weights and the 2 guys that are. Sticking with that example. And so you're confirming your bias, your stereotype in that way. What about schemas? Do they come into play? Someone already mentioned that in here. So schemas don't have to just be about the professor's room and what's in it, what's in it, right? It can be about, you can have a schema about an occupation, right? If someone introduces you to someone that's an actress or actor on TV, do you have a schema of that person and what they're going to be like? Probably. How many actors and actresses that are on TV have you ever personally interacted with? Anybody ever interacted with one? Anyone ever interacted with 2? Okay. So, but does everybody feel like they have a schema of what that person should be like? Right? That's a stereotype, right? That's a set of impressions centered around an occupation.
So does it have to be for occupation or could it be for like one person? So like if I like Beyonce, will my schema of Beyonce be that she's so loving and is a great person? Or has that work?
That's your impression of her, right? A schema is more general. So female hip hop artist or whatever, you know, would be a schema. All right. We'll pick up here next time on Monday. Come ready to go because I played around a lot today and we had some fun. Hopefully we're learning some things, but we're going to hit the ground running on Monday and cover a little bit more content. Have a great weekend.